Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the National Technology Officer for the ABF, and in this video we're going to talk about the project side of things. So this is one of three videos. The first one's an overview of the system. Have a look at that if you haven't seen it already. This one is around the project side of things, as I say, so things like cost, delivery time, scales, risk. And the third one is going to cover technology choices. You don't need to understand technology to look at that. It should be fairly self-explanatory. Okay, so traditionally with projects we use one of these things. It's called a Gantt chart. It comes from engineering, and it's a very structured way of approaching projects. Now, we all know that doesn't work all that well in engineering, that you build houses and bridges and things and we have lots of overrun and late delivery and so on. It works even less well in technology. IT is a far less mature industry than engineering, and this approach doesn't actually work all that well. This is not just an example Gantt chart, this is roughly what we expect to deliver and probably roughly what we think it'll cost, but as you'll see as we go through, we've got a different approach to looking at this. So this is what normally happens. The business come along and say, I need a new system, when can I have it, what's it going to cost, and the IT guys grossly underestimate how long it'll take and how much it'll cost, and we end up with all this disagreement and unhappiness. Now, one thing to bear in mind with projects is, and this is not something you really want to hear your IT guy telling you, but 68% of all IT projects fail. And the number one reason for that is not knowing what you wanted in the first place. Now, we're being very clear on that. That's why we've got Julian Foster involved as the business analyst for this. So Julian is working out exactly what we want, and we'll have most of that kind of nailed down before we start writing any code. So, project stuff. The old approach, as I say, was fixed cost, fixed time, wait until the end and see if it all works. The new approach is more agile. So what we try to do is we break things down and we take small steps and we try and deliver things in small amounts rather than one big thing at the end. Now, if you're building a rocket, you can only use the rocket when everything's finished. You need the fuel, you need the engines, you need the capsule, you need the re-entry stuff, you need the parachutes, you need all of that stuff, otherwise the rocket can't be used. Now, that's not the same with our system. So with our system, because it's nice and modular, even one bit of it would be useful. So we don't have to wait till the end to roll this system out. We can be rolling it out as we're building it. So we come back to this scenario again. So what will it cost, and when can I have it? But a slightly different answer. So what we know is it's going to cost somewhere around $15,000 a month to run this project. We'll be able to produce something that you can see every month. So the system will be changing, things will be released, and something useful. So a reasonable sized feature about every 3 months. How long will it take? Hard to say with any great accuracy. Depends a lot on when we actually manage to hire a developer and so on, but you're probably looking at the first deliverable second quarter next year, so event management, and the system finished in probably 18 months to 2 years. So what are we actually getting ourselves into with this? Now, the ABF Management Committee met last weekend, went through all of this stuff, and we're very happy to approve it. So we know what we're getting into, but so everybody's clear, we're going to be a software company. The ABF will own software, which is a massive benefit in the modern world. Companies that own their own software are far better positioned than companies that don't. However, there are some implications to that we need to be aware of. Now, if you buy hardware, it's very much like getting a house. So you never want to see your builder again once the house is finished, much as you don't want to take your laptop back to the shop. It's not going to be for a good reason. So hardware tends to be a finished thing and that's it. Software doesn't work like that. So software is much more like a garden. So if you had the landscape gardener in to make your garden look wonderful, someone's got to cut the grass, water the plants, trim the hedge, or your garden's going to be a horrible mess. And that's exactly the same with software. It needs ongoing attention. So we're going to be paying for a gardener forevermore. Massive upside, as I say, owning our own software, but we have to be aware that that's a commitment we're going to have to make. This stuff will not just sit there and run on its own. Okay, moving on to risk. So here's the top 5 things. Number 1 we've got here is making the wrong technology choices, and I'll explain why this is not an issue. So technology is very much like buying a car now. There's just no bad technology really. Certainly if you choose any of the major technologies, you're in safe hands. It's much like the discussion around should I buy a Hyundai or some other BMW or whatever. There's pros and cons. People have their own favorites, but there's actually not a good or a bad one. So that one I don't think we need to worry about. And the next video will talk about the technologies as well. Getting the requirements wrong. So we've said this is a big issue. That's 68% of these projects are failing. Top reason, wrong requirements. So that's why we've got Julian in. So I think we've got that one covered. Still need to be vigilant around it. Still a risk, but we're focusing very hard on it. Failure to deliver. As I mentioned, we're not going to wait till the end for this thing. So we shouldn't have a failure to deliver issue that's any more than a commitment of a couple of months. So that manages the risk on that fairly well. The really big one is poor adoption. So if we build this system and we get it absolutely perfect, there's still no guarantee that people are going to convert across and use it. So that's something we've got to be very focused on. So what we're going to try and do there is to make sure we involve people as much as possible in the process, hence videos like this and so on. Treat the rollout as a project on its own, so not just a small part of the technology bit, but actually a big thing to actually get people cut across and using the system. We're going to get feedback and we're going to be adaptable. There'll be things we get wrong, we'll just make sure we change and get them right. Ongoing support's less of a risk than just a fact of life, so we're starting to build that in now to make sure that we're aware of what we're committed to. Resourcing, so who's going to build it? Well, I'll tell you who's not going to build it, these two. Me and Julian are not the people you want writing your code for you. So what we'll do is we'll go out and we'll get some professionals in. So we're intending to hire one developer initially. So we've got three options. We could either hire directly. We could go through a body shop, so potentially using offshore resources or whatever, or we could engage a company. There's no clear right or wrong around this. There's issues with all of them and there's strengths with all of them. What we've agreed with the technology unit is that we will do the hiring directly or through a body shop as our preferred option, primarily because it's the cheapest way to go. If it doesn't work, we may look at engaging with a company, but we think we can make this work. Costs. So as I say, somewhere around 15,000 a month is what we're going to be burning on this. And when we complete it, we still need the gardener employed. We're not quite sure. It'll depend how much work we think there is for somebody to do there. That wouldn't be all support, that would be enhancements as well. And the infrastructure costs depend on how successful we are with rolling it out. But a few thousand a month is probably what we're looking at there. So that's basically it in terms of the project stuff. If you haven't had a look already, go and check out the demo, and if you've got some feedback, I'd love to hear it. So thanks for listening to me, and if you want to check out the next one, it's going to be on technology.